those of you who do not know me, I'm Becky Kelloffer. I've been with Grundfos now for about 3 years, but prior to that, I was a manufacturer's rep for Grundfos from, I'll just say, early 90s until about 2014, and then I took a job for J.R. Smith. So that is where I kind of met some of your locations, walking around in my yellow shirt. But then I left Smith, went back to kind of the side of it that I appreciated more the technical end of it. And because I was a rep for Grundfos for so long, it did give me a little bit of an advantage. So I am the domestic building services manager for most of the upper Midwest. So I cover all of the mountain ranges and all through the Dakotas, down to Colorado and so forth. So what I'm going to start with is a quick overview of some new products that are coming out for our domestic circulators. And then I'm going to transition to this discussion regarding Scala. What were the changes? What were the date codes? Give you some information about how we reworked that product. It'll have to take some visual cues. I'll switch back to my webcam because I've actually got samples of the components that we changed, and it's much better than me trying to describe it. And then I'm going to take another break and move you over to a new product that's coming maybe summer this year. We'll see. You know, when they tell me it's July, I always kind of say it's going to be October. But we'll see when that comes out. But I think it's going to have a lot of really neat applications for you as well. And that's also in the Scala family, excuse me. All right, so the first thing on your screen is the Alpha 1555 Hot Water Comfort. I don't know how familiar you are with the Alpha product line. There's some feedback. So I don't know how familiar you are with Alpha, but it is an ECM chassis. It takes the comfort pump that we had with the 1015, was a relatively low curve. It was a slow moving pump, moving maybe a half a gallon a minute, and that's fine if you're talking about standard water heaters. But it couldn't be used with a tankless water heater because it just takes too much head pressure to move across the heat exchanger in a tankless unit. And most of those units require a minimum of half a gallon to up to 2 gallons to activate the first stage of the heat exchanger, to actually turn them on. And we were not getting enough flow rate through this little bypass valve to activate the heaters. So what we've done with this is we've taken a much higher head pump, and that can overcome the friction losses in the heat exchanger. Plus, we supply this unit with 4 of these isolation valves, and I'll explain that in a minute, and 2 push button activators, because you don't want tankless water heaters constantly cycling on low fire. You want them to fire when there's a need for it. That defeats the purpose of having tankless. And before I go too far into this, do you sell tankless?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
You do? Okay, good. Okay. So we give you 4 of these kits with the hoses. Now, if you were to put these in 4 different locations throughout the home, master bath, kitchen area, whatever, you have 2 push button activators. Again, kitchen, master bath. You push one or the other, any of them, and that bypass is going to start moving across all 4 valves in unison. This way, we create enough flow rate to fire the tankless. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so it is imperative that you put multiple bypass valves in there. That is a little bit of a disadvantage. Later, probably early next year, we will have a larger bypass valve. It'll be close to 3/4 inch. When that is available, then we won't need the multiple bypass valves. Okay? But for right now, this is the options that we have. Obviously, the checks are included inside the pump. We have the push button switches. They're Bluetooth enabled, and their range is about 300 feet. And we also offer a repeater if that's not enough. Okay? It says Q2 or so this is out right now, just so you know, it's available. Let's see. The next unit that we have is the one with the hot water wireless Aquastat. This pump is also available now. It comes with a digital timer. Oh, wait, I'll back that up. We put it on pause until this quarter because we hadn't integrated the digital timer into the face of the unit. You'll see that next. But again, it's an alpha chassis. It has a high head performance, better velocity. It works as your standard recirculating line. So this is not tankless that we're talking about, and we're not talking about retrofitting. It's a pure recirculating pump with a dedicated return line. However, we have incorporated a wireless Aquastat that you would affix at the furthest point. It will give you a central reading, and it's only going to come on when it sees a call to bring the temperature up in the recirc line. And the advantage of putting a timer on it is if you only want it sensing temperature, you can limit the time of day that it does that. Again, we're trying to drill down and offer the best money-saving advantage for them. Okay, push button to activate, and that will start the pump running if it's not within its cycle. Any questions on that product?
So that you communicate with the timer. Where's the timer at?
The timer will be in the clock in the pump face, like this.
Oh, okay.
This is a brand new model that we're coming out with. We really were supposed to have it at the end of last year, and there were some supplier issues with vendors, and it just didn't happen. But I know they're supposed to be rolling in sometime this month or early next month, so we'll be able to start meeting those commitments. But the timer, if you remember the old pump that we used to have, the 1016 that had the little dial in the front, it looked like a Norelco shaver, okay? And it had the analog pins that you could adjust when it came on and off, like a Christmas tree timer. Well, this is very similar to that premise. It's going to be in the face of the pump, and you'll be able to digitally activate the pins, okay? So the pump will either run in 100%, which means it's always on. You can program it to be set up on its timer, which will activate this way.
I'm not sure I understand.
Sorry, that was my phone. Any questions about that product? So in addition to, hang on, shift tab, go back. In addition to, I can't back it up. There it is. This pump here, having that timer face, it will also be available as a standalone 1016 with an integrated timer. The next product I want to show you, we came out with a product called the Alpha 2699 or Alpha 2 2699. It was a ECM version of our standard 2699, has a little bit higher performance. You'll notice that this product is a little bit different. It was originally designed because we were working with boiler controls. Okay, do you sell a Lochinvar?
Yes, we do.
Okay, this is the pump that's in the Lochinvar high efficiency night. These fins here on the sides, it may not look exactly like it, but this is the pump. These fins on the side are cooling fins. So this thing can take like 130-degree ambient temperature because it's supposed to be packaged inside the boiler case. okay? We are very soon going to be coming out with something that looks a lot more like a $26.99. It's going to be painted red. These fins will not be there, but it will come with the same ECM motor and high performance curve settings, okay? So right now, this pump is available as cast iron, and it's also available in stainless steel. This month, we should have them, okay? Big difference with these pumps, again, no internal check valve. That's another issue that we're trying to work through. The Alpha 1 $26.99. So this is closer to what we saw in the unit that goes in the night. It is a 0 to 10 input. So if you have another boiler, a competitor's boiler, and somebody wants to hook it up, hook a pump to it that can take a signal from the boiler to activate, this is the pump you want. So it's rated for high temperature, it's cast iron construction, it has the ECM functionality, and it will take a signal. Okay? The MQ pump. I don't know how much of the MQ that you bought before. It was kind of a problem child for us, but it is being phased out slowly. There are still a few of them in the market. We have some commitments from certain distributors that they're trying to fulfill, but eventually this product will go away. And we're doing that conversion to Scala. The next product that I show you after we talk about the advancements to the Scala 2 will explain where the fit will be for the replacement to this pump. Okay? Scala 2, the best part, what we're waiting for. So I think you've noticed, I had a conversation with someone there that had mentioned that in the last 6 months to 8 months, you hadn't seen a tremendous amount of returns on your Scala pumps, which is great news. We made a product change in the end of 2019. So if any of you guys are familiar with how we do our date codes, 1951 means the 51st week of 2019. Okay? Any product that was manufactured after 1952, or right, the 52nd week of 2019, effectively everything that was produced with a 20 right here is new production. This should be out of your inventory. If it's not, you should probably check and make sure that you have nothing that is older than 1951. And if you do, we'll try to figure something out. Get them out of there. It's not that those products, there was another change that happened mid-year, 1940 something, that did some improvements to the product. They put a little spacer ring in the nut. Does anybody remember that little stainless steel ring we put in here?
Yes.
Okay. That was a great fix. The problem is that most contractors would go in, they would just pop the nut off of it, replace the pump, and screw it back down. They didn't change this. So consequently, when pumps were coming back defective, we would see the stainless steel rings just knocking around in the bottom of the box. They didn't put them in there. And we didn't do a good enough job communicating that the fix meant you had to change everything. You had to change the connection piece, which wasn't a good solution. I will admit that, but the new products right now have completely taken that away. Let me see, where are we on the slides? I think that now is just as good enough time to we'll stop sharing the screen and talk more about the changes that we made to the pump. Okay, so here is an example.
Becky, what you're saying is if we replace a 1910 date coded pump with a 2020 pump, There's no concerns about the steel ring or anything?
Nope, those are gone.
Okay, so what if they screw the old nut onto the new pump? Are we okay to do that?
Yeah, you are, because I'm going to show you what we've changed internally that's
Okay.
made this better. Okay. So this is going to be a little tough to see. I'm going to try to use my webcam for it. All right. But this is the actual, if you took the nose piece off where the inlet and the outlet are, there's a cover right there. And at the very top, there's the priming port. If you took that cover off, this is what you'd see. Okay. So here is the top of your priming port and the inlet and the discharge. Oof, gotta do a better job here. Okay, everybody got that? So right here, I want you to pay attention to what you see. We have threads that run up. And that spacer ring was supposed to put a gap right here, okay, to keep them from turning too tight. The spacer ring sat right there, okay? This is the new version. Okay, so what we have here is the spacer ring molded into the pump. And this is reinforcement. Well, if I can get it done. This is all reinforcement that has been added to it. You see that? So when I compare the two, you can tell that it's a whole heck of a lot beefier, and the gap that we needed the spacer ring for has been addressed. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what's coming out now. And that was the production change at 1952. So anything 2000 forward, we've had I want to say the returns that we have had, and there have been a few that were questionable as far as how they were handled. But the failures that we have had have come from things like the electronic behind the keypad. They haven't been leakers, okay? That has been extremely rare. And our return rate on this product right now is about 1%, I want to say, which is good. We're pushing to get it even better, always making revisions with these pumps. Another thing that we changed middle of last year was we started integrating a small aluminum or metal drip pan that sat right underneath the foot. So if I share my screen again, right here, there's a little metal catch pan. And that catch pan is used so when you're when you do a first install, the seals inside have to break in, okay? And that you need water for that to happen. So there's a little bit of dripping that takes place when the seals are setting, and that stops after a couple of days, maybe even a couple of hours. That will be done. Also, the unit will still condense. If you've got, cold incoming water and you're in a conditioned space, you're going to get some condensation. And because everyone is very gun shy about the performance of Scalas, we didn't want to take any chance of the break-in period or condensation causing alarm with the new product. Okay? Is there any questions about what we did with Scala? And if you like, I can get some samples of this new end piece sent to you. So if you want to go out and talk with your contractors about it and show them what's changed, I'm happy to do that.
That might not be a bad idea, actually.
Okay, how many would you like?
Well, if you send like 6 of them to Billings, I can send 1 to each branch, and then everybody would have one anyway.
Making myself a note. Hang on just a second. All right, I will do that. And if you've got some of the old ones out in the bone pile, They are field scrap now, so if you get one of those old guys back and you're writing a credit, you can yank a couple of these old nose pieces off for comparison.
Right.
It's pretty compelling to look at them side by side. Okay, and then the next thing I had in this presentation was basically we are kind of condensing our jet pump offering. It was never really a big mover for us. I'm sure you guys know that. We have some new SKUs available, and we discontinued some SKUs. Has Joe shared any of that information with you?
We did get the new SKUs for the new half.
Okay, good.
1 horse, yeah, yep.
And you got the stainless steel models.
Yes, that's what we stock, yep, and we have new ones in stock in Billings anyway.
Good. Okay, then we'll just move out of that. Let me close this one out. And now I want to show you what's coming up.
So back to the jet pump, you can only do stainless steel up to 1 horse, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
For now, I think they're talking about some more, but it really goes back and forth depending on who you're talking to, because some people want to get out of it altogether, and some people like, well, why don't we just embrace this portion of it? So I don't get in the middle of that.
Right.
Okay. But this is new, and this is going to be the MQ of the future. It's called the Scala 1. The Scala 1 has a lot of really cute, I won't even say cute, just terrific features that fill a niche that Scala 2 can't touch, okay? The first thing, I'm gonna move this out of the way so you notice that over here, I have a little handheld device, right? So Bluetooth compatibility, having the Grundfos Go capability has always been a real selling feature for us, being able to do things to the pump without actually having to push buttons on the pump and count flashes and all of those things. That's going away. We're going to have this with an integrated software system that can allow you to speed up, slow down, do different things with the pump, all through a handheld device. It has the internal non-return valves, inboard controls on the PCB board inside, and it has a commissioning assistant, which is available through the app. Okay. The way we're kind of positioning this price-wise, it's going to fall in between the jet pump and the Scala 2. But I think you're going to find that there's a place really for both of these in your setup. Okay. Again, kind of coming through a lot of these operations. New to the Scala 1, we have twin operation. So I'll show you in the next couple of slides where the T and base connection, so you can run them in parallel. They're really, really easy to start up and commission. You use the Go remote. There's no more dongles. Sizing selection, we can put an external switch on it. So if you're doing tank loading or using a float switch, we can tie those sensors into the pumps, okay? And again, we have the startup system and new functions as far as the priming options to keep to get less air in the system. Okay, so it is definitely self-priming, but there's some other things that we can do that have addressed some of the problems that we found in Scala 2 when it's used in domestic applications. Click. Okay, so basically this is how it runs. The pump comes on. I mean, here's your priming port, your fill valve. Pressure switch is located inside this device right here, just under the priming port. It detects a flow rate, and then you get standby situation set for 10 seconds, no flow. It shuts itself into, or it puts itself into standby. If still nothing's coming out of it, it will trip itself and throw an alarm. That's pretty similar to what the Scala 2 does right now. taking a look at the internals of the pump, you'll notice this doesn't look anything like the inside of a Scala 2. Okay, it looks a lot more like an MQ. Okay, so you have your control module right here. You have stacked impellers. Here is your diaphragm valve. Okay, the little bleeder valve that allows us to go to shut off. And as you see, the water will come in. It'll move through its stages. Okay, pressure is increased. Then it moves through the cooling jacket, could cool off the motor, back through. Diaphragm valve will control the start-stop function, and out you go. Okay, very simple. Works very, very similar to the MQ, but with a little bit better functionality. So we have different applications. We can obviously use it as a domestic booster, okay, just like the Scala 2. It doesn't have some of the other features that Scala 2 has, but it is effective in this application. But in addition, we can boost it from a shallow well. Okay, whirlpool suction lift. Oops, sorry, go back. Oops, there's the back button. But you can also use it now for tank loading. Okay, so whether you're using it from a tank in a cistern, or if you have a tank on the roof, you can now bring that system in. You can tie in the controls, the float switches. A little bit of the performance information that we have on it. Model numbers. This shows a multitude of different model numbers, but this is everything that we offer across the globe. Okay, they're available in 230 and 115, and obviously it's just a NEMA rated power plug. Here are the curves for all of those pumps. In the United States, we will have the 345 and the 355. So you can see a really nice curve available, high pressure performance on the new Scala 1. Outdoor installation, of course, it's rated for outdoor applications. It has its NEMA, I'm trying to remember what I think it's 4. So it's protected against splash. I don't believe you need to put a cover over it. It's not a bad idea, but it's definitely rated for outdoor application. It has a self-priming feature. Sorry, make this thing go. I think I've got it. It can self-prime up to 26 feet in, I want to say, under 5 minutes. Was what they were told me. So the water comes in, circulates through, comes back in through the bottom, and that second thing is where it's pressurized, and then a vacuum, as it's moving this direction, it's pulling a vacuum, okay, which causes that to hold prime, which is a great feature. It's the same feature that's available on the Scala 2 right now. Problems that we have gotten from the field, I won't say problems necessarily, but nuisances reports that we've gotten from field is occasionally sometimes these pumps will clack. Has anybody heard of their Scalas clacking? They'll make a thumping sound in the piping system when the pump kicks on and off. Well, when that does happen, it's because the self-priming feature isn't necessarily needed on pressurized systems, okay? And that chatter is created by the self-priming function. So what we've had to do in the past is to go down inside here, take the drain port, and put a pin in there that disables the self-priming function, okay? That has gone away with this pump because we now have an option to set it up as 1, self-priming. It will point here. 2, if you want to have a lot of air in your system and you're worried about that, this will do, it's just better at air elimination. I don't know what the science is behind that, but it can work much better with high air systems. And then it has the positive inlet, which is over here on position number 3. This takes the clack away. So if you're in a standard residential application, they're getting city water pressure, they don't have a lot of air, they just need it to boost, then I would put it in position 3. Okay? Another thing that we have right here on the side of the pump are your external inputs. Okay, so you can put a 24 volts DC signal on there, or excuse me, a digital signal. So if you want to use a switch, a float switch, or tank valve, you can wire that into the pump to activate it. Now you do need, however, the Go Remote functionality to set the pump up when you've done that. Okay, so you'll need to program it for that. And it's very simple to do. You would go in to your remote and you could put it in here on your external outputs. Open, closed, run on output only. You have some options there. Okay? The operation panel will look very similar to the Scala 2. You have your alarms at the bottom. You have they call it the Grundfos eye. If it's standing still, it's on. If it's rotating, it's running. If it's red, there's an alarm. So I think if you've worked with the Scala before, you're familiar with the diagnostics on it. And now the twin configuration. So with this pump, we manufacture a manifold with the isolation valves and a stand. So you can put this pump in parallel and boost your pressure beyond that. So here's your 155 that we were looking at your original example, and it was showing a run out somewhere around 7.5 gallons a minute. Now we've taken it closer to 15. Okay, great for if you wanted standby, okay, or if you want dual assist. I need that thing to come on and supplement because I'm running my sprinkler system. Okay, I need more pressure. Or everybody is sprinkling their own lawns right now. I need more pressure. You can kick on the secondary pump. Okay, again, that programming is done through the handheld remote. Calendar function, we can set this up also with a calendar to when to turn it on, what days to turn it on, and the time frame, how long it needs to run. And perfect, again, for an irrigation example. Construction materials, you notice that we've taken a lot of the metallics out of it, okay? I mean, there was a point in time where we thought if it wasn't metal and it wasn't heavy, it wasn't good. But that's kind of gone by the wayside. Another thing you'll notice inside this pump, and I like this cutaway because it shows it real well, on the old Scala, that priming port is right here. And we were having a lot of troubles with cracking inside the Scala 2 because it sits right here, real close to where the union nut is. Now we've backed it up significantly. So the cracking is not going to be an issue inside this pump. It has the reinforced teeth. You can't really see them, but it is reinforced up in here the way the other unit is. But the distance is really going to be critical to keeping them from being able to over torque the nut. Little bit of highlight on the item. I like this one over here. It's temperature limitations. I don't know what that means. Not extremely loud. I mean, 55 decibels is typical. It's lightweight, has high performance ratings. In the 2 models that we have available, it's 2,800 RPM.
So
size-wise.
So this is a constant speed pump, right? It's not a variable speed like the Scala 2?
Correct.
Okay. And then
So there
the,
you have,
sorry. So
no, I'm sorry.
I see there's a non-return valve in the, like by the discharge of the pump. So
Uh-huh.
in a suction lift application, say like on the AMQ and the Scala 2 both, you have a check valve or a non-return valve under
Right.
the suction port. Is
Uh-huh.
not one
Right
on
here.
this, or do you need one?
A non-return valve, it does. It has non-return valve on the suction and the discharge.
Oh, it does on the suction as well. Okay.
Yeah, where is it? It's right here. I don't know why they didn't identify it. Here and here,
Okay.
okay? Size-wise, it's a little bigger than the Scala 2, but it's smaller than the MQ was. Okay? A little bit manageable footprint. The rating plate, I'm sure everybody's familiar with this. Your date code is always found right here. So in this pump, we're looking at a pump that was produced in 2019 and 36th week. Okay? Which wouldn't, oh, I see, because this one came out of Denmark. They've been messing with it over there for a while. Service and repair parts will all be available. And here's the information on the twin kit, okay? You get the manifold and the valves and the plate. We're also adding an inline filter, okay? So if you are using it to pull from, say, a cistern and you don't want all your leaves and twigs and bird feathers in there, we have a little filter right there that you can install and clean it out. Any questions on the Scala 1?
When is this coming out?
I always get that. I was originally told July, but now I think it's probably going to be later in the year, which is unfortunate because, you know, pressure boosting is big in the summertime. You know, we don't think a lot about pressure boosting in the middle of the winter, but I am anticipating maybe first part of fourth quarter, or, you know, if we're lucky, third quarter.
Could you give it a different name than Scala?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, it was a wisecrack.
Oh. All right, well, let's see. Let me go back to my cam here. Oh, now one of the things that I've talked to my reps about a little bit, and it's been a condition that I've ran into a few times with Scala, particularly in rural applications or where people are using well water for their Scalas. Some of those systems don't have expansion tanks on their water heater. Do you run into that occasionally?
And most of the time,
Most of the time?
depending on the water, yeah.
On the water heater?
Hot water heater, yeah.
Yeah, the hot water heater
Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't have an expansion tank.
No, I usually do.
They usually do. Okay, well, there is some circumstances every now and then when they don't. Okay, they use their bladder tank to handle the expansion, or it's some old community and they haven't added checks to the meters. And so there are still some pockets here and there where we find that there is an expansion tank on the house. Now, I had a 2020 pump go down, and it really just blew my mind. And then we came to figure out that there's no expansion tank on the house, okay? If you're using a Scala valve or a Scala pump, regardless of the configuration that you're using, you need an expansion tank on the system, because the pump itself has two check valves, inlet and discharge. Okay, so you're introducing a check into that system. Does that make sense?
Well, it kind of makes sense, but I mean, the Scala 2 has a pressure tank built into it.
Yeah, it has a tank, but if you remember, that tank is isolated from the system with the 2 reversing valves.
Okay, so what are you saying? That
So
if
what I'm saying is, for this, and that little tiny reservoir is like 4 ounces. Okay, I mean, anybody that knows anything about water heaters knows that 4 ounces is not going to handle thermal expansion. Okay, so what I'm saying is that little bladder is separated from the system, and it's used to turn the pump off when there's no draw on it. Okay, if you have a home that you're putting a Scala 2 in, and whether or not they have an expansion tank is in question, you need to check. Okay, they need one, because the PSI rating, or the maximum pressure the Scala 2 will handle, is 145. The relief valves on water heaters are 150. It doesn't take long to figure out which one's going to have seal problems. Okay.
that's news to us, or news to me anyway.
I actually wrote a white paper on it. I'll send it over to you. It has some recommendations as far as sizing, proper sizing for expansion tanks. And another thing that I've run up, and this is just cannon fodder for you to knock around, but a lot of people are doing renovations to their homes, and they're adding secondary water heaters, you know, for high flow and, you know, soaking baths and whatever, but they're not increasing the size of the expansion tank. So if you have a little ST5 hanging on a 50, and then you put another 50 in there, you may need a bigger expansion tank. And contractors need to be aware of that. It's based on the entire system volume.
That could
So
be where the problems came from.
anyway, I will send you the information on the stuff that I wrote up about expansion and Scala, so that you can consider it. But of the few problems that I had with the tanks, or with the new Scala models last year, almost every single one of them didn't have an expansion tank on the system. When we put an expansion tank in, put a new pump in, it was beautiful.
So does the Scala INO manual talk about that tank?
So this is the tricky part, okay? The tanks are required by code, so everybody likes to kind of default to that position, you know, refer to your code. It does say, there's a little tiny blurb that says something about properly sized expansion device. Okay, but a lot of people don't pay attention to it.
Right.
And when you're, and I get it, when you're a contractor and you walk into a home, you're here to boost pressure. You're not here to review their hot water system, right? So going, you know, over there and taking a look at the water heater isn't something that comes to mind, but it's an opportunity to upsell, I guess. If they're in there anyway, they're going to say, oh, well, you do need this, and they can install the expansion tank as well.
So what's the average size tank required? I mean, are we talking a 2 to 4 gallon tank, or are you talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you're only talking about a regular water heater of 50, maybe even a 75, you're fine with the little 4-gallon expansion tank. I mean, you know, rule of thumb, there's always outliers, but for the most part, that'll take you everywhere you need to go, ST5.
Right.
But sometimes you're going to need a T12 if you've got a big enough BTU load.
Interesting.
Is it predominantly gas or electric out there?
A lot of both.
A lot of both?
Yeah.
Well, another thing that I ran into, I had somebody tell me one time that I've got an electric water heater, so I don't really have any problems with expansion, and that's not true either. That's actually worse, because when you're drawing off the system and the heat and the electric water heater kicks on, it's only firing one element. So the recovery doesn't happen until the valves close and both elements come on. So you're getting a much bigger impact from thermal expansion with electric water heaters.